So today we need to stop in Norman, Oklahoma and take a look at the Oklahoma Sooners as Brent Venables not only picks up another addition via the transfer portal, but is hot on the trail after a few others. Today we need to break this down. We need to talk about the new addition Oklahoma got via the transfer portal and some of the other guys they're pursuing. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited about Oklahoma's transfer portal moves? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below as those interactions are massive. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, we have got to start with the new addition that Oklahoma got out of the transfer portal, and that's former Miami of Ohio offensive guard Caleb Schaefer, who stands 6'5", 315 pounds. And this is a solid addition. Whenever we look at the experience this individual provides, he has got a lot of starting experience, having started 13 games this past season and really been active on that offensive line since he got there in the class of 2018. This is what the transfer portal affords you. We've talked about this at length. The transfer portal affords you an opportunity to go get players that are talented that you know have made the transition, but it also affords you the opportunity to go get players who have so much positive experience and can be such a driving force in a room and helping other guys develop and come along. Because there's not a lot of football that this young man has not seen. And furthermore, he was an all-Mid-American Conference player, which is saying something. This is a talented individual. He was very good at Miami of Ohio, and I'm intrigued to see how he makes the transition from that institution to the Oklahoma Sooners. No doubt the competition is going to be exponentially better, but he will also be working with Bill Bedenbaugh, who is one of the top offensive line minds in all of football. Just look at his track record of developing guys and sending them to the NFL. Don't believe me? Seriously, go check out his list of guys as they're in the NFL and look how much they're getting paid. There tends to be a little bit of a theme there. Super excited to see how this young man develops. But we also need to turn our attention to some of the additions Oklahoma is trying to add in. And today we're going to talk about two. One on the defensive side of the ball and one on the offensive side of the ball. And since we're already on the offensive side of the ball, why don't we start there? Where Oklahoma is hot on the trail of one of the most coveted wide receiver prospects in the transfer portal, Andrel Anthony Jr. from Michigan, transferring from Michigan Wolverines. And this is an intriguing player. Anthony Jr. is a very talented wide receiver, but when we look at his production, the lion's share of it came from his freshman season, where he had 12 receptions for 248 yards and a long of 93. When we look at this past season, that diminished to 7 receptions for 80 yards, and once that happened, he hit the transfer portal. And there have been plenty of suitors, whether that's the Oklahoma Sooners, whether that's Miami, whether that's Notre Dame, whether that's Pittsburgh. This is a kid that multiple institutions want. He stands 6'2", 175 pounds per 24/7 Sports, and this is someone who, depending on which recruiting service you look at, he was a blue-chip 4-star guy coming out of high school. So it makes complete sense when we see all of these institutions after him. He is a rangy wide receiver. He's got the ability to go up and get jump balls, but he's also a little bit sneaky fast. Whenever you watch some of his highlights, he's able to gain separation at the top of his routes consistently, and that's something I find intriguing, especially if you're looking for a guy that can be a big play, deep threat type guy, someone who in the red zone you can utilize on the jump ball. I think he's a very interesting prospect, and I think it's good reason so many institutions in the nation are after him. This is a name I want you all to remember, because whether the Oklahoma Sooners or not land him, I think this is a player a lot of institutions are going to be very excited about the prospect of even getting him on campus, so this is a name you need to remember. But the Oklahoma Sooners offered not long after he hit the transfer portal. OU has lost some wide receivers to the transfer portal, and they're trying to get some depth there. But I must admit, whenever I look at some of the wide receiver talent on Oklahoma's roster, if I was an Oklahoma fan, I'd be very excited about some of the talent there. Jaden Gibson stands 6'5". Oklahoma fans saw what he could do during the spring game. Nick Anderson is someone who, if you put your ear to the ground, you hear a lot of rumblings, and all of them positive about his ability. And Jaleel Farouk is an individual we've talked about exponentially here on the channel, how Jeff Lebby is utilizing him. I think next season he's going to be in for a huge year, and we don't even know what the future holds for one Marvin Mims yet. So the wide receiver position for Oklahoma, not even talking about guys such as LV Bunkley, Shelton, or some of the guys they just got in this recruiting class, This is an intriguing wide receiver room, but I don't fault Brent Venables and Jeff Lebby for looking at a guy with experience and so much upside and being intrigued about bringing him into the room. I think that makes complete sense. And finally, we need to shift to the defensive side of the ball. And the one area we've talked about here on the channel at length that I'm interested to see what moves Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners make is the interior defensive line. Now, one thing I will grant you, Oklahoma fans, is I was really impressed during that Florida State game about how guys such as Isaiah Coe performed. I thought he had a coming out party. We've known he's a very talented player. There's no question about that. But what we saw during that Florida State game, there's no question that was a very impressive performance. One of the reasons why I think a lot of people thought Florida State would win that game is the stylistic matchups. Oklahoma has struggled against the run, albeit gotten better as the season has gone on, no question there. And Florida State is a power run-oriented team. The thorn really went in Oklahoma's side whenever they had so many opt-outs, yet when we watched the game, that did not stop the production from being very impressive from that Oklahoma defense that struggled all year. But in that Florida State game, really looked like it had started to find its identity seriously. We've seen them trend in the right direction as the season's gone on, though they lost, I believe, 3 of the final 4 games, but they were really trending in the right direction in that bowl game. And the interior defensive line had maybe their best game since the Nebraska game. And we saw what happened. So it makes complete sense to me whenever Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners are turning their attention to the interior defensive line and a guy such as Devon Sears Jr. from Texas State. And this is someone who played this past season, has 15 tackles, 8 solo tackles, and 1 sack, standing 6'2", 290 pounds per ESPN. And we've talked at length about the need, especially in Brent Venables' scheme, to have that power interior presence. I think there are some intriguing edge pieces that Oklahoma is bringing in, and I'm really interested to see how they translate. But if you want to maximize your 5-star edge that you just got in the recruiting class, you must give him a strong interior presence, because the last thing you need is for him to be taken on by a guard and a tackle because your interior presence isn't threatening enough to the offensive line. If you have that big nasty in the middle, they can't double team your edges. They're going to be so preoccupied by making sure they have sound gap alignment, because one of the beautiful things about Brent Venables' scheme, and I was last night actually watching some old Clemson games just because I was bored, they use those linemen and up front to plug up the holes, and the linebackers start creating havoc, and it is really fun to watch. And we saw TCU do this very effectively against Michigan. Line plug up the holes, linebackers get to work, and we saw how effective it was. But you need guys that you are confident are going to be violent at the point of attack, that are going to welcome taking on double teams. If Oklahoma can land Sears Jr., that would be a huge win. Now, they are not alone in the pursuit of Sears Jr. He dropped a top 3 that consists of the Oklahoma Sooners, Tennessee, and Penn State. So 3 notable programs. Tennessee's coming off of a really solid year. They've recruited really well. 5-star quarterback in the class, Nicholas Iamaleava. Very intrigued to see what Heupel continues to do with the Volunteers. This was a really good year for them, and they looked good in the bowl game as well. Penn State is a team that always seems to be good, but I often wonder when they're going to be able to get over their hump. James Franklin's a great coach, but I often wonder when they're going to be able to get over the hump. Maybe it's this next season, but I think Penn State's a team we need to watch, and I really would like to start talking about Penn State and some more Big Ten football in general. That's going to be a definite goal of mine in 2023. And then finally, the Oklahoma Sooners. We've talked about this. Brent Venables has been so active on the recruiting trail. If we look at their recruiting class, he has a top 10 recruiting class after 1 year of work when Oklahoma went 6-7. That's wild for you to pull a top 10 class after going 6-7. And when we look at the pieces, stellar class, top to bottom, no doubt for Oklahoma. 5-star quarterback, 5-star edge, 5-star safety, really solid class. And I think the emphasis that Brent Venables has put defensively for Oklahoma has got to be something that's comforting to the Oklahoma Sooner fan base, especially having to deal and see with a team that has been unable to play defense for so long, to be quite frank. Now you're seeing so much attention go to the defensive side of the football without foregoing the offensive side of the football. And I think that's a very exciting prospect. But Devon Sears Jr. is a name that Oklahoma fans would love to get in. Pair him with Coe in the middle, pair him with LeBlanc. I'm really interested to see what this Oklahoma defensive front looks like going into next season and how they continue to improve. But I really can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See you.